All right. Okay, the format for this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcements, a coffee and snack break, and our main a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker tonight is Steve B.
My name's Steve, and I am an alcoholic. Boy, you guys get me up here quick. I have a sobriety date of May 9th this year, and experience, strength, and hope. My experience probably isn't much different than some of yours or most of yours. Maybe I've gone farther down the scale than some of you. Maybe you've gone farther down than me. I don't know, but I drank and used for the effect produced by alcohol, period. And it released me from this right here and made me a part of. And if I get in a drunkalog, who knows, So we've all been there and done that if you're sitting in these rooms. So my first introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous was in 1986. I'm 56 years old. I was 18 at the time, and I went into a rehab that pretty much raped your parents' insurance company and introduced you to Alcoholics Anonymous and told you to get a sponsor and introduced you to the steps. And I looked at the steps and said, what can those do for me? And a sponsor, it sounded like a father, and I didn't get along with mine too well, and I didn't either. And I got the direct result of that. And for the next 25, 30 years were multiple prison terms and institutions, and I think the big book says it the best: insanity and incomprehensible demoralization, and a lot of hurt, a lot of resentment on both sides of family, friends, and so on and so forth. And I think it was in about 2015 or so, 2015, I believe, late 2015, I had gotten out of prison, and my parents were pretty much done. And I used their address for a parole address, and they weren't going for it. But I decided to stay sober, and I called. I was calling somebody and writing somebody when I was in prison, and he was going to be my sponsor. And when I got out, he decided that somebody else would probably be better suited for me because of my institutionalization. And I remember I was getting the phone calls, and I was coming into my parents' housing tract, and I was like at the street where you go left or right. Left was home, and right was, right. And I almost made that right turn. And for once in my life, I just stopped, and I made the left turn. And I went up to my house and went through the sliding glass window, and it was a routine like this for the next year and a half. And that was, my mom would take one look at me, look at my dad, shake her head, and my dad would say, "Stephen, you can spend the night tonight." And like I said, that went on for a year and a half. It was a blessing in disguise. I was introduced to, actually, your main speaker is his Eskimo, and to a gentleman named Shane. And it was just what I needed. I was a total social introvert. Coming up here would have been not even comprehensible. And he was a social butterfly. He introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous, and he knows a lot of people, and he was active, and for the next 3-4 years, I just hung on to his coattails and just let him take me everywhere and introduce me to people all over the place, from LA to Orange County to Palm Springs, just everywhere. And every sponsor I've had has had strengths, and his was that. We did some step work, and by the way, I do have a sponsor. His name's Rocky from Huntington Beach. He does know he sponsors me, and believe me, I do know he sponsors me. I just got off the phone with him before I came in here, and he basically told me your fifth step will be done on Sunday, by next Sunday. So I got a little work to do. Anyways, COVID hit, and I decided, a break from Alcoholics Anonymous sounds good to me, and proceeded to not do Zoom meetings. I don't do the computer thing. I don't do this or that, and I got the direct result of not going to meetings. Eventually, I got loaded. And from that time on, I have not been able to accumulate more than probably, I almost hit 9 months at one time. And, when I'm on, I'm on. And when I'm doing this thing, I'm doing this thing. So I then proceeded to get a sponsor, Rocky, and we were talking just recently, and I don't remember the exact what we were talking about, but he was telling me in his 19 years of sobriety, he's sponsored a multitude of people, and he's really active, and he's going, I have sponsees, Steve, that, have certain strengths and so on and so forth, and he goes, let me tell you something. You, of all people, in the history of 19 years, I've never seen it financially recover the way that you do. I have my own little business. I have good earning capacity. I'm not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but and I had to think, because I always balk at my 9th step. Is a huge thing, because there's so many zeros attached to it, and it was after that conversation we hung up, and I thought, my Creator, God, whoever, has always takes care of me. And I was talking to David on the way up here, and it's just a mind blow how things pan out for me. And why wouldn't my Creator take care of me now, and do it? So I'm not excited about doing my 9th step, and I know that's a few steps away, but I became willing. There was a willingness there for me, and it's a huge thing. And if you've worked the 12 steps, you do the columns, the easy, difficult, hard, and never, I've never even got to the easy, So anyways, with that being said, my life with 12 steps in it becomes manageable. Unmanageability, I didn't even find out what unmanageability was until I had a life that was manageable, and that's something that the relapses taught me. Let me tell you, I couldn't do anything, barely call to connect or go to the bar or anything. In the short period that I have right now, 70-something days or something like that, my life is incredible. It does have its problems. I do have issues, problems, but again, with manageability, they become manageable. What else would I like to say? How much time do I got?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, so I don't have time to go into that. I don't know if I had a suggestion for anybody that's new, and there was one person that came as a newcomer. They say it. Get a sponsor, work the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's a lot of promises. They've all come true to me at one time or another. And you do get rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence. And I thought about that when I first heard it for the first time in 2015, when I really started listening and reading the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought, rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence. Well, we see 3 dimensions. Why not check out a 4th dimension? And so I did, and it's pretty fucking awesome, man. So I'm going to stop there, and thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
God, grant me this serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Dave from Belmont Shores.
How's everybody doing?
Amazing.
Oh, look at that water holder. I knew that was a water holder there. My name's David. I'm an alcoholic. And, you know, I'm glad to be here. I haven't spoken in a while, so there's tons of stuff that has happened in my life, so I got a lot of new material to work with, and we'll see how that goes. But I want to thank my friend Steve for coming up with me, man. I love Steve, right? I love Steve. Steve is one of those guys that I know if you've been around in the rooms for long enough that you're like, dude, that's me, right? It's just like, man, my heart goes out to him like all the ins and outs that I've seen you do, man. It's like I pray for you all the time, man, all the time. And when you come back, you saw how I was when you came back, and I'm like, I want to cry with gratitude because these are the kind of people I can't stand to lose, right? I can't stand to lose in my life. And if you don't know, and you probably do because you're in this room, this is a fatal disease. This is a fatal disease, and with fentanyl thrown into the mix, it's even worse than ever. And I'm tired of seeing people die. I'm tired of it. I've been sober since August 30th, 1997. So I've seen a few people pass, and I don't want to see my friends go. So, you know, I'm not sponsoring you, Steve, but I will beat your fucking ass if I see you leave the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous again, man. He'll be all drunk. I could take him then, you know. It's good to see Adam, and thank you, Alan, for having me up here. And Seal Beach Speaker Meeting is my home group. I go there every Monday night, rain or shine, and I've become part of. Right, that has been my group. That besides get a sponsor and work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, get a home group and stick with it, man. Stick with it, man. To the point where if you don't show up, you're going to get phone calls, right? Because I hate getting phone calls, right? There's enough going on in my life without getting phone calls like, hey, where were you, right? I was watching the ball game, you know. I never have a good excuse for where was I, right? So I was in the hospital. I broke my back, right? That worked for a while because I did break my back. So I guess I'll get to it. I'm from Laguna Beach originally, and my parents are still there. And I played tennis this morning with my 85-year-old dad, and he can still whack that ball around like you wouldn't believe. You know, he's got a new hip, and he's just like got a new lease on tennis life, man. And I am very, very, very lucky. I will not miss that Saturday morning tennis with my dad. If I have to throw him on my back to get him up there to sit in a wheelchair and whack the ball back and forth, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do because I missed out a lot of years, a lot of like decades of relationship with my father. The same as I did with my son. You know, this disease doesn't just kill people, it kills their soul. It killed my soul. I drank and used for 24 years. I started when I was 13 years old. I was in Laguna Beach. I was my father's son, right? My dad is a mathematical anthropologist. Whatever, right? I'll give you his phone number if you want to ask what exactly that is, because I really don't know, right? But you know, he's cutting edge, right? And he was one of the first professors hired at UCI, and he's professor emeritus now. But he still writes papers and goes and gives talks around the world and stuff. You know, like a learning-based socialization is what he's just totally into it, right? It's like his life work, right? Man, I love that dude, man, but I don't know how his mind works, right? Because he wrote a book that was like, took 10 years to write this book. At the end, he submitted it to the college, college review board to see if, it would be disseminated through the rest of the country, right, and the universities and stuff. And they were like, okay, we'll get back to you, right? It took 2 years for him to field a team that were qualified enough to review this book that nobody knew what the heck he was talking about, right? And yet, if you ask my dad to pick you up at the airport, you better call an Uber too, right? Because he's probably not going to show up. He's going to forget that, right? He used to drink Taster's Choice, right, before all these fancy home coffee things came out, and I would constantly find in the microwave a cup of coffee with just the Taster's Choice bubbled into the bottom of it because he forgot to put water on the Taster's Choice when he heated it up. I'm like, you're a professor, right? Right? It's like, it's so funny. And my mom's smarter than he is, right? It's like, man, my sister's an opera singer. She sang at La Scala in Milan, Italy, and she toured Europe, right, in this opera group, and she won the West Coast regionals for the New York Met, right, and then caught a cold on the plane on the way over there. She was supposed to sing with Placido Domingo and stuff, right? It was like her make or break moment, and she caught a cold, couldn't do it, right? But she's very. I mean, she speaks 5 languages, and she's like, I don't ever want to get in an argument with my sister, right? She would fillet me, right? The rest of the family's just like that, right? I had an uncle who was an advanced engineer from McDonnell Douglas. My aunt ran Camarillo State Hospital for a period of years as a psychiatrist, and I mean, just on and on and on. The whole family's like this, right? Newspaper writers. I mean, it's just like, wow, how did I get born in this intellectual freaking family, and I'm an alcoholic? It was like everywhere I looked in my family, there was success at a very high level, right? So I've heard my friends say this, that I got ingrained in me that my worth was based upon what kind of success I would have in scholastic or whatever. I was no good at sports, right? I had bad eye-hand coordination when I was young, so that was out, right? So I proceeded to study really hard, and I got skipped ahead from the 8th grade to the 9th grade math class, and had a really good tutor at home, right? So I was set, and I was on that track, right? I was following after everybody in my family, but there was something latent in me just ready to come out, and it kind of had to, right? Because there was no socialization about me. I didn't know how to make a connection with another human being. I really didn't. I remember the happiest times in my life. Like one time we went to deep South Mexico into it was up in the mountains above Tuxtla Gutierrez in southern city of Chiapas, right? It was San Cristobal de las Casas, right? Way up the mountains. 100,000 people in this town that was like in a bowl, and we lived on a ranch on the outside. And I don't know why, I was like 7, 8 years old. My parents would let me run free around the whole place, right? And they'd just let me go, right? Well, they didn't know what was out there, right? In hindsight, I'm like, that was probably not a good idea, right? I remember finding these burial mounds, right? And up in the mountains above, and then slowly figuring out as a 7-year-old kid, this is burial, like there's dead people buried there. And it really freaked me out, and I came running down the mountain. But I remember the happiest I ever was is there used to be these really deep carved streams running through the fields down below these mountains. And I would walk along the stream, and it was so filled with frogs that you take one step and you go plop, plop. And you take another step a little faster and plop, plop, plop. And then I'd be running full speed and just sound like machine guns, just blah, 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 all these frogs jumping off it. And I remember watching a snake and another snake that had a frog between them, right? And they were playing tug-of-war with this poor frog who was still alive, right? He's kind of frogging out like this on the sides, and they're going back and forth, and one snake goes over the other, and the other one backs off, then goes over him, and I'm like, God, is this what life is right here? It was like by myself in nature was the only times of happiness, and like, I'm okay. When I got around people, I'm frightened. I don't know how to hold my face, right? And I still have that, right? I still go, okay, how did I look right now when I just told that story, right? How did I look? Where's the mirror, right? Humans are really weird, and I'm very human, so let me get this rolling. Part of the reason I wasn't very well socialized, because I was the school safety. I don't tell this story in the penitentiaries when I go in and do H&I work, right? I was the little schoolyard rat that would send a note into the office if I caught you smoking out behind the bathrooms, right? So I had no friends, right? And I think these guys got tired of me telling on them, because they invited me down to go below the school and drink this bottle of Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill, right? Just like, man, we have a universal theme on starting up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I did, and then we smoked something, and I don't remember anything but laughing with other people. And it felt like, oh, God, this is what it means to be in a group of people and be okay. And this is the magic tool that makes it happen for me. And I made that decision on some internal level that took 24 years to break. And all the pain and all the horror and all the shame that built up for 24 years due to the actions that I took based upon me going out and drinking like nobody's business. Like my friend Pat O says, if you stood in between me and a drink, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose, I don't care who you were, right? And I proceeded to demonstrate that. Something had happened to me when I drank. Your stuff would go missing. Right? I don't care what it was. If it wasn't nailed down and guarded with dogs and guns, and even then they better not sleep, because I'll creep on you, right? Man, I crept through that town of Laguna from ages 13 to for 5 years. For 5 years, I crept and burglarized and stole and thieved, and my friends, my family, anybody. If I could get something that would put something in my body, I was going to do it. And there was no consequences. The consequences could not, there's no way in the world they could be strong enough to stop me, because I was young, right? I had immense capacity for pain at that age, right? And so I went to every county camp that Orange County had to offer. I wasn't very good at stealing your stuff. I would get away with it, but you'd know it was me, and then the police would come, and I'd be handcuffed. Here we go, right? Here we go again. And every county camp, I went to a rehab called Sea-Doo up in the Running Springs, right? And long before it was fashionable, this was like 1975, 76. It was see yourself and do something about it, right? That was their program. And they were really good. It was attack rap therapy, right? So they were really good about breaking you down. They did not have the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and a power greater than myself to build you back up again, though. And all they did was break me down, and I heard a bunch of things I hadn't tried yet. And so when I left that place, I left on my terms. We were doing fundraising down in San Diego, and I feigned sickness and went back to my room. They all went out to dinner, and then I burglarized their hotel rooms and stole all the money that everybody had gathered. And then, that's my terms for leaving, right? That's what I do, right? I just took action after action after action to build within myself a sense of that you are a liar, cheat, and a thief, David. That's who you are. That's who you're always going to be. And like Steve, I was like, if you saw me at a party, you were one of the lucky ones, because I was creeping. I didn't want anybody to notice me. If you noticed me, you might see in my eyes, and you might see who I was on the inside. And I couldn't have that. And you also might see me stealing your pocketbook, right? I really can't have that, right? Because it's going to get in the way of my drinking. And then I turned 18, right? Here we go, California Youth Authority. I went to a YTS, Youth Training School by Chino. And I got moved over to Ventura School Program because I still had some, all all the strong sedatives and the hallucinogenics and the alcohol. They hadn't quite beat down my brain enough, so I couldn't think. So I was still real smart, and I passed their test, and they said, oh, okay, we'll send them to the college program. So I went to the college program, and that was my only college. My dad was heartbroken, right? That's like California Youth Authority College Program. That was. He thought I was going to USC, right? It was fell a little short of the mark. And then Oregon Penitentiary, and then Soledad Prison. I was at for 5 years, and then Mule Creek Prison. I did as an adult, I did 5 prison terms. I was convicted and sentenced 5 times to 5 different prisons, and I did 24 years in total in penitentiaries. I was, this is what I'm going to tell you about those places, man. You'll find a bunch of people just like that, right? Just like us. It's full of us. It's all us in there, man. They're all alcoholics / drug addicts, whatever it is, right? Smokables, whatever. So I had a whole new crew of people to hang out with, right? I'm like, I have found my society now, right? But I didn't believe it, man. I didn't believe it. You know, those guys, those smoking and joking on the yard, tough guys that with all the tattoos, and they've been driving iron for 20 years, and their arms are as big around as my leg. Man, they go to their cell every night, and they lay down their head on the pillow alone in that 6x8 cell and hear the doors go clang shut, and they sit there every night and think about their family, their mom, their sons, their grandma who's dying, or what. They think of all the things that they gave up to be a cool fool out on the yard, right? I knew it was a lie. I knew it was a lie. And I knew we were fooling ourselves. We go out in the yard and we tell stories about, we were just born in the wrong age, right? I should have been born a Viking. If I'd been born 1,000 years ago, they'd be writing songs about me. I'd be Bjorn the Brave or something. It's like, or Jesse James, right? Like bank robbers or something like, right? By the way, I did rob banks. I did rob some banks. That was my last term. I did 11 years in Lompoc Penitentiary, federal penitentiary for bank robberies. I'll just say one thing about this. Did you ever see the movie Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro? Yeah, it was nothing like that. It was freaking so pitiful. This is my headlines. Mild-mannered man robs bank. Right? Really? The tellers would argue with me, right? They're like, you seem like such a nice young man. Why do you want to do this? And I'm like, look, it's not my first time. It's just, I understand you have to give me the money if I say this is a robbery. So this is a robbery. Okay? And I'd be smiling the whole time, fake smile. Give me the money, all right? I didn't want anybody else to know what was going down. And I'd take their little, whatever they gave me at the it's amazing how little money they can have in the first drawer at the bank. I didn't know there was a second drawer until I was already arrested, right? I didn't know. On one bank robbery, I got $237, man. Dude. It's like, it's like, I could have got that at the corner liquor store. Would have had probably more than that, right? It was just pitiful. I'm doing foot escapes. I'd go rent a hotel room and then sit there thinking, okay, I just rented a hotel room in this little podunk town in Oregon somewhere. I just rented a little hotel room, and there's like a 2-horse town. There's 2 traffic lights. I rented a hotel room in the only hotel. What are the police going to do? They're going to go check the hotel room. So I'd be out in the field watching my hotel room for the police to come. Right? Shivering. It's Oregon in the wintertime, right? That's where I chose to go rob banks. So I got rescued after. This was my best robbery. I got it was almost $12,000 cash, right? One robbery. It was set up by this guy who told me the times when payday is in town, and he said the drawers will be full, right? And then as I was waiting, he took all the stuff that I had and went out and sold it so he could get some crystal meth, right? So it left me in the middle of the town. And I went and robbed a bank anyway. And a long travail of clues that I left behind me caught me like 150 miles away in Bend, Oregon, right? I got caught. They knew I was there, right? Somehow, right? I'm thinking I'm in the clear. I'm 150 miles away. I'm clear. I'm good, right? No, it probably had something to do with in Portland on 82nd Street, 3 days in a row, I robbed a bank. Like, it's a very long street, right? So I started at one end and then didn't get enough money and then went through it. And then the next day I robbed another bank further up the street. And then the next day, same thing, right? They got me on Channel 8 News. So I'm famous as like the worst bank robber in history in Portland, Oregon, 82nd Street, right? So when I was arrested, they gave me 151 months. And I was like, okay, I didn't have a gun, right? I got $237, and you got all that $12,000 back. You caught me with it, right? I didn't get to spend it, right? And you're going to give me 151 months, right? That's 12 years, 7 months, right? At 85%, right? I'm not going to have any hair left by the time I'm out of this penitentiary, right? And so I proceeded to do that time, and I found out in the federal government, they have less control. Where you'd think they would have the most control, they got less control than the state penitentiaries, right? It was wide open. You know, you had to yank your own chain because nobody had a chain on you. The officers didn't know what was going on, or they were part of it, and the inmates would just let you run up a bill forever, right? And I ended up owing a lot of money on the yard, which kind of is not good behavior for wanting to survive a prison term. And I didn't have anything coming in. And then the clavo hit, right? The big package hit the yard, and everybody's partying, and I don't got no money I can't be a part of, right? So now I'm losing the society. I feel like I'm losing the society, which I wholeheartedly sacrificed my life on the altar of alcoholism to join, right? So I burglarized the commissary. I was the HVAC repairman, electrical repairman. I rebuilt all the kitchen equipment. I had the run of the place, right? I kicked the warden out of his office once just to see if I could, right? Just so I could say, yeah, I kicked the warden out, right? You know, I got to pump down this refrigeration unit. It's going to displace all the air in this office, sir. And so I got to wear this mask right now, and I'm worried for your safety. Could I ask you to leave, please? And he left, right? Kicked the warden out of his, just total lie, and kicked the warden out of his office. So I could do what I wanted in that place up until that point, right? You remember those notes I used to drop on guys? Well, there was 11 notes on the lieutenant's desk the next morning. It said, Boyd did it, right? And I'm like, it's karma, man. I can't escape it, right? 30, 40 years in the making, it comes back and gets me. And so I spent the next year and 3 months in ADSEG and DSEG, right? And, you think, okay, I'm 35 years old. I'm in the middle of my 5th prison term, right? I'm under arrest, while under arrest, and I'm sitting in the hole, right? I'm sitting in the hole with nothing, right? There's nothing. We get a little Sony Walkman radio, so I listen to Jim Rome sports shows, and it's like, this is my big thing of the day. 2 hours in the morning, I listen to Jim Rome, and I listen to music, and it makes me remember that I don't have a life, right? That everything's gone. So I'm either gonna take a look at the man in the mirror, or I'm going to figure out where in that cell that's shook down every day I can make and produce enough alcohol to make my life worthwhile. Which do you think I did, man? I told you, man. You stand in the way of me and a drink, you're going to lose. And I cooked Pruno in that cell for a year, over a year, right? I cooked Pruno, and they never found it, right? I'll explain to you how I hide it, but I didn't have time. I don't have time. So they came and wanted me to move cells, right? This is the deal. in order to get promoted as a guard, you got to think of ways to like make policy changes, right? You submit like, this is a danger, we need to address this, and have your name on it. And then it goes up the chain of command, and if it gets implemented, it looks good on your record, and you're a hard charger, right? So somebody had realized that out of this heavily, like extra hard concrete and rebar and cameras down the corridors and earthquake machines that go around the building, collapsing the tunnels we might be building. Somewhere in the middle of this, those plastic sporks that they give us to eat with, we might be tunneling out of there with those, right? So every 2 weeks, they move our cells to make us begin again with the spork, right? And I knew this, right? I knew this, but I was like getting sloppy, and I'd timed my batch wrong, and it wasn't ready. So I told them, no, I'm not moving. You know? And they're like, they started smiling, which wasn't good. So I put a sheet up so they couldn't see in. I told my roommate at the time, I was in AdSeg, you have a roommate in AdSeg. I told my roommate to get up on the top, right? Get up on the top bunk and just be chill, right? Just surrender when you have to, you know, that's all. I'm not asking you to do this with me. And they came charging in, right? Dude, man, they were like Ninja Turtles, right? They're completely carapaced in armor, right? You can't see any skin on them, like a vague reflection of skin through their face shields and stuff, right? And they come, and they're the biggest corn-fettedest dudes that they have in Oregon, right? Just big old woods, like there's so much steroid in this man, I can smell it off them, right? And they come charging in, they go team up, and one pushes after another, and they're 5 deep, and they come in slamming in like that, and they all went down in a heap because I'd put lotion and water and stuff all on the wall, you know. They had no idea what they were rushing into, right? So they all got up, brushed themselves off, and they looked around, they got and he's like, I don't have it, you know, and so he surrendered, and he's out of there. And I'm gone, right? I've escaped temporarily because I'm somewhat of a contortionist. I had to do that in order to be a creep thief, right? I had contorted my body enough. I'd cracked my shoulder actually getting in behind the bunk where they had a built-in shelf, but there was a hole about like that big that if you could get back there, they're not getting you out, right? They're not getting me. I told you I wasn't moving cells. I told you, right? So they spent the next, I don't know, I always say 15 minutes. It was probably 3 minutes, right? But they spent a while trying to get me out of there, right? They're reaching in and trying to grab me, and I'm pulling their gloves off, and then they don't want to reach in there anymore. And they're filming the thing. They're filming the entire time, right? Because, you know, they're accountable, or they want to be. And then the camera disappeared, right? And I'm like, oh man, I know what's coming now, right? It's like, and so I told him, I said, look, I wanted a victory, right? So I'm like, if you get out of here right now, if you leave this cell, I will climb out and peacefully surrender, right? Peacefully, I'll put my hand, I will surrender, but I don't want you to hurt me, yanking me out of here when I'm part way out, right? So if you close the cell door, I will surrender. And they did, they wanted to do this because the rest of the place was going off, right? They were flooding their cells, they were screaming, they're banging on the doors. Because I forgot to tell you, the whole time this was going down, I was screaming like a little boy, right? Right, like, and they thought they were killing me in there, right? So they're going off, right, in support, and it's like we were having a moment, right? It's just like, yes. Two of the dudes set their mattresses on fire. You're in a 6x8 cell. Don't set your mattress on fire, right? They had to go rescue those dudes, right? It was, man. So I surrendered, and this wasn't in Lompoc. This was in Sheridan FCI, Federal Correctional Institute, up in Oregon, right, where I was arrested at. So for that incident, they sent me to Lompoc Penitentiary, and I quickly got in a bunch of trouble in Lompoc. I was in the hole twice within 90 days, right? Twice. I just barely got here, and I'm already getting busted and going to the hole. And somebody gave me something and told me, when can you pay me? And I said, 2 weeks. He goes, okay. All right. And the dude that gave that to me, his nickname was 6'8". It was a description of his size, which was an understatement. He was as wide as he was tall. He was the biggest human being I've ever been in proximity to in all my years in the penitentiary, right? He was giant, right? He was another race. He was from another part of the country, from some gang in some other part of the country, right? It's like, why would I tell him I'm going to pay him? I have nothing. How am I going to pay this dude, right? But it was too much of one thing and not enough of the other, right? And there was no alcohol for me to go to, and so it just, I'm up all night, clenched, right? Just clenched. And I can't, something broke, right? Something broke. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back, man. That incident didn't even, I told somebody that I was going to pay him in 2 weeks. I did pay the dude in 2 weeks, right? But I told somebody, you know, that wasn't really a bottom. But it was a featherweight on top of the load that I've been building for 24 years, right? And it broke me. It broke me, and I woke up the next morning, just like Chuck C. and my homeboy from Laguna used to say. He goes, I wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's how I felt. And I went looking for AA in level 4 penitentiary. I had no idea if it was here. I had no idea at all. And I walked in, I found a couple dudes. I knew there was something up with these dudes because they had shit in their locker, right? They had stuff in their locker. It wasn't barren like mine, right? Because I traded everything I had for a hit of whatever, a bottle of something, right? These guys had things, right? They weren't we called them yard lames, right? Because they weren't doing what we were doing, chasing the bag and chasing the pruno and just chasing, like on a hamster on a wheel. You know, that's what I was in there, a hamster on a wheel. I'm an artist, right? I'm a pretty damn good artist. I was in the Sawdust Festival, and I won Best New Contributing Artist in the Sawdust Festival in 2007. I was drawing pictures at a high level and trading them off for $25 worth of whatever, just so I could continue the run, right? I'm a whore. I was a whore, and the best thing that God had given me so that I could keep the run going on this stuff, man. And I ended up talking to these dudes, and you know how you approach somebody quietly, right? Like, hey, is there any meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous in this place? And their whole demeanor changes, right? They're quiet little dudes, right? They're yard lames, right? They're quiet dudes. They're not saying much, right? But when you start talking about Alcoholics Anonymous, their whole demeanor changes. Their voice raises several octaves, right? And they're all, dude, you've no idea. I'm like, hey, man. You know I burglarized the commissary, right? Because that was my claim to fame, man. If you show why you should be in there while you're in there, you're a rock star or a knucklehead, and they love both, right? So, and I said, look, I'll be there. And in August 30th, 1997, I walked into a room full of members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I heard men talking about becoming people of dignity and honor in a penitentiary, right? We've been gavelled away from the light of day, and we are scum walking on the earth, right? That's the message that we've been getting our whole lives and our whole prison term. We are useless, evil people, basically, right? And by my actions, I couldn't hardly argue with it, right? I mean, that's what I did. I did all those things, right? I was actually arrested. You know my favorite commercial on TV? I love the Super Bowl commercials and stuff. You know what the ongoing bet, because they got so much to work with about what can go wrong in this world. The Mayhem Man. I was arrested for mayhem, right? I wasn't convicted of it. It wasn't really true, right? But I was arrested for mayhem, so I identify, with the Mayhem Man. There's just so much to go wrong, especially when I'm drinking, right? It's mayhem. Man, those guys grabbed me. They grabbed me. I've been in AA before, right? I got stabbed in the eye in a bar fight in '84, and I'd been forced to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Four others. To have a place over my head, I had to go to AA, right? And man, I was in rooms with Chuck C., Dr. Paul, man, Joe Quinn, all these heavy hitters in Laguna Beach AA, and I didn't hear a word they said. Nothing, because I wasn't there for me. And I reading New Pair of Glasses right? And I read a new pair of glasses in 1998 at a year sober. And it took my wind, it took my spirit, like, oh my God, I shook that dude's hand. I sat next to him and had thoughts about, what's this dude's, man, he's like half dead sitting there in the chair next to me, right? He's on oxygen and shit, right? It's Chuck C, man. I couldn't even get to talk to him because of so many people were just surrounding him in the loving arms of Alcoholics Anonymous at the end of his days. He was just surrounded by people because the way he lived for so many years, living by the principles outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, he lived his life that way for so many years and gave so much of himself that I want that. I want that. And that's what those guys showed me in that penitentiary. I was clean and sober on that yard for 7 years. I was a friggin' pom-pom waving, cheerleading member of Alcoholics Anonymous on a level 4 penitentiary. And by this time, I'm good at sports. Right? So the fellows on the yard can't ignore me because that's all we got in there, right? That's all there is other than whatever comes in that we can get high on, right? So I'm proselytizing on the yard, right? Man, if you've ever tried to drag a drunk off a bar stool, try dragging them off a prison yard, right? It's much more difficult, man. All the defenses are in place, man. He ain't got a problem. You got a problem. You're going to have a bigger problem if you don't step away, right? I mean, that's what you get when you try to say, hey, bro, you got to come check out this meeting. We used to trick them, right, into coming to meetings, so all the tough guys and stuff. But these are guys that are like Steve and stuff. Like, if they got sober, their ability to carry a message would just be phenomenal, man, because they're such good dudes, and they're funny, and they got a sharp mind, but they're just locked in. They're just locked into this is who I am. This is never going to change. This is the way it's always been, and this is the way it'll always be. Man, but we used to trick, we'd tell them, bro, there's this thing happening, man. There's like a little spread. We're making burritos, right? We got real coffee. Now this was the kicker. This was the penultimate kicker. We got real coffee, like brewed coffee down there, bro. No taster's choice, real coffee. And they're like, yeah. And we're like, and this is it. And there's women there. There's women coming in, right? Like real women, right? Not the other way, right? And they'd go, man, and they'd finally ask a question, what is this? And what is it you're doing? What is it? It's not church, is it? And like, no, it's AA. Oh, that's even worse. I'd rather write in something foul come out of their mouth, right? Rather than go to AA, right? And I'd be like, well, sooner or later, we got a chair for you. We'll be here. I paroled January 3rd, 2005. And I went to the Canyon Club in Laguna Beach. And I surrendered all over again. I'm a newcomer now, all over again. Right? And I didn't know it was going to work free, clean, and sober. It worked in the penitentiary. Worked pretty well. There was some tough lines I had to walk a few times because, people see somebody that's not like being aggressive, they think they're weak, and so they're going to try and be aggressive with you. So you had to walk that line very carefully a few times. But I did, and man, out here, if I meet guys like that I met in there, I can just walk away and never see them again. Right? It's the greatest thing in the world. I get to choose who I hang out with, right? I get to choose the job I have. I get to choose where I want to live. Actually, there's way too many choices. It was a little overwhelming at first, and I shared for years about this transition I'm making to the free world, and finally some old timer said, "Look, shut up with that, man. This is life. That's what you're complaining about. It's called life in the free world. That's all it is, right?" I'm like, oh, thought it was special again, right? One more time. I was a member of H&I at I joined H&I immediately as soon as I got out, but I'm on federal probation, so I can't go back into the places where I used to be, right? But the moment I'm cleared probation, 3 years, I cleared federal probation, and I immediately was going into the Orange County Jail, right in H&I panels. And then within 6 months of that, I got cleared to go to Chino, right, where I'd spent many a day, right, in Chino, right? And I've gone to Terminal Island. I was never at Terminal Island, but I've gone to Terminal Island. I'm in the process right now of trying to get cleared to go back into Lompoc Federal Penitentiary, right? A friend of mine who ain't even sober anymore got to go in there, right? And I was so jealous. I'm like, dude, man, how's he get? I'm sober longer. I've been free longer, and he gets to go in, and then he promptly drank as soon as he got out, right? And I'm like, oh, dude, man. But I'm gonna do it, right? I'm gonna go into the place where I used to be. But I was in Chino Yard in '89. It was the last time I was in Chino East Yards, the White Elephant. They changed it to the S&Y yard now, right, with special needs or whatever. It's a check-in yard now is what it is, right? But when I started going in 2008, it was lifers, right? It was a lifers yard, and also it was lifers and parole offenders, right? So it's just like nothing but old convicts in there, right? And many multiple time convicts in there. And I walked into that, I'm dressed just 5 minutes. I'm dressed just like I am now. I walked in that place just floating, right? I'm just floating. They closed the door behind me and I jumped, right? And I'm like, if I wanted to, I could tell that guard, sir, open that door right now and let me out. And he would oblige me, right? Because Alcoholics Anonymous had created a free man. And as a free man, I have certain inalienable rights, and he has to let me out because I am no longer a convicted felon, right? I am pertinent in my own life. And then they took us to the guard station. And at the guard station, there was an old sergeant who I remembered. I remembered this dude, right? He was an officer when he wasn't a sergeant, but I remembered him. All he saw was the suit. That's it, right? And he's staring at me, though. He's pinning me, right? And I'm like, oh, shoot, he knows. He recognizes me. Oh, no, right? And then I'm like, oh, what does he know, right? I belong here. I'm doing God's work here to the best of my ability, right? But this sergeant walks over to me and he says, sir, which I thought was a good sign, right? He says, sir, I just want you to know that these guys won't listen to anything a man like you would have to say, right? And I went, well, he said, and he continued on, he goes, they're just here for the coffee. And I'm like, so am I. That's it, right? And then I went in and I talked to the fellas in there and I told them about that I told them a little bit myself. And I said, by the way, this is what can happen to you in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a potential for you in your life to have the same experience that I'm having right now. I was on this yard, man. I was in Butte Hall just hating life, just hating it in the heat of summer, smelling the cow patties from all the little dairy farms that were in the area, right? Just baking and cow patty smell. And now I could stand right up and tell that officer, open that door. And he has to obey me. He has to, man. Because Alcoholics Anonymous has brought a power in my life that is much far and greater than any power I could summon of and by myself. Right? We are, and I used to hit the inmates with this one because I was big into history, right? I'm going to tell this really quickly, I hope, and shut up. The Romans, back in the day, the Romans had what they called, like their thing was called the fasces. Actually, the word fascist comes from this, right? But was the fasces, and what it was a bundle of sticks. And it represented the bundle of sticks could bend, whereas one stick would break. The fasces together, whole, would never break. It would just bend. The strength of the fasces together was just unbeatable. And the Romans fought that way. And they ran the world basically for 1,000 years, right? You always got to hit the convicts with like old school military style recovery, right? They like that. It's the first inroad, right, that might break the spell that they've got themselves in. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I had a horrible time dating when I got out. Horrible, horrible time. It was like one mistake got worse and worse, one after the other. Finally, at 55 years old, my sponsor told, Otis Johnson is my sponsor. Otis told me, that's it. I want you to take a year off. No dating, nobody for a year. And I'm like, dude, I'm 55 years old. Let's see, I was 17 years sober, and I'm on dating restrictions? Where's that in the promises, right? I never read that, man. That's not in the black print, Otis, right? And he goes, okay, well, as sponsors do. It says, okay, well, then let's check the record. I'm like, damn, man, okay. All right, okay. At the end of that year, a woman named Carol M. told me, now, who are you dating? All happy, and she's an old timer, right? She's like, all in my business, and I started playing my little sad song about I can't date. And she goes, no, I don't want to hear that. That's because you've been dating the women that would have you rather than the one that you want. Now, who is it? And just blew me away, and out of my mouth popped the word Sarah, right? I didn't know, I hadn't been romancing her. I hadn't been like creeping from a distance on this woman in any way, shape, or form. I knew her, and she was like on this pedestal way up. She was just ex-model, right? She lived in New York, was a fashion editor for Marie Claire magazine, never been arrested, right? Just like everything that I'm not, this woman is, right? And just beyond gorgeous, beyond beautiful. And over a period of time, Carol M. and several other people that found out forced me to give Sarah a call. And in October, we'll be married 7 years. And she took me to Ireland, right? So I toured all of Ireland with this. She's Irish. She's 100% Irish. We went all over Ireland, and then we went to where I wanted to go. We went to Rome, right? And I've been reading about this city. My whole life, right? I know more about Roman history than I do American history by far. We went on a tour of the Vatican. All the art, the Vatican Art Museum is extensive. It's like the 5th largest museum in the world, right? I saw, and I'm an artist, right? And I see these things, and I'm just like I'm emoting much worse than I ever do at the podium, right? And the end of the tour is the Sistine Chapel, right? So we got there, and I looked up at the Sistine Chapel, and the hand of God touching Adam like that, like that's what was done for me. Alcoholics Anonymous is my Sistine Chapel. It's where the power of God was brought into my life with sufficient force to destroy the influence of alcohol and drugs in my life, and replaced with something beyond my wildest dreams. Like you said, the 4th dimension. Man, I did speedballs, bro. I totally been looking for the 4th dimension my whole life. But this was real. This is the real 4th dimension. And I looked at that, man, and I thought about my 6x8 cell I'd been in for 24 years. And I thought about where I was now. And I just broke down like a shotgun, man. Like I was bawling my eyes out. Once again, people were moving their children away from me because like, oh my God, he's having a nervous breakdown. Get away from it. I've never been so overcome by gratitude, and I will never forget that. Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps, a God of my understanding, and the society of all of you have given me my life. And it's beyond anything I could have ever imagined. So thank you so much for listening to me. I love you.